So Mr. Arthi Bhargava now joins us, Chairman of Maruti. Mr. Bhargava, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What's the status of BS3 engine inventory? Do you think all the vehicles which were in the at the showrooms, which are lying with the dealer and the stockist, have they been cleared for Maruti?
You know, we had introduced BS4 in 2010. After that, we never made a BS3 car or an engine. So the issue of a BS3 vehicle being with us has not been there for several years now. So I'm not sure where this feeling was that we would have had some BS3 cars on 31st March or before 31st March.
Okay. So thank you for clearing the air. I mean, I thought that there was a bit of an issue with four-wheelers also. Two-wheelers, I knew that there were BS3 challenges, but thank you for that clarification. Okay, we've got your March dispatch numbers, and the March dispatch numbers are quite impressive. Mr. Bhargava, I must admit that you've been very cautious about slowdown in the car industry, but every time I look at your dispatch numbers, you're doing fantastic. So are you being conservative every time when you describe your outlook with us?
Not really, because we had predicted at the beginning of the year that we would achieve double-digit sales during 16-17. The actual number which we've achieved is 10.6. It's just over double digit. So it's as accurate a prediction as we could have made.
Hormazd, a company which can never go wrong, always on top of investors as well as
that's right.
Keen observers like you.
No, I think Maruti's it's a dream run really, and I think the fact is there are two things. One is that they've really cracked this market. They're getting products more and more suited to this market. Ignis didn't fire as well as we thought, but I think that's to do with the styling may not appeal to everyone, but they've got a new Desire coming up that has a lot of promise. And then moving forward, you've got the new Swift, which is always a smash hit. So just looking forward for the next couple of years, Maruti's just got their product pipeline sorted, and I think the other factor is that the competition really hasn't been able to respond effectively. So other than Hyundai, which can give a fight, but they're a distant number two, everyone else really is either banking on just one product that's doing well, but they clearly don't have a product pipeline that can really give Maruti an effective fight.
Mr. Bhargava, let's move away from this monthly discussion of the monthly sales data and let's talk about the exciting pipeline. Hormazd here says that, you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to your product pipeline. Tell us what's the vision in the next 2 years? What are the exciting cars that we're going to see from your stable?
No, obviously I can't talk about all the new models which are in the
Not all of them,
pipeline.
but just give us a flavor.
But, I mean, what is quite obvious to us is that unless we keep producing new models to meet the customer requirements, we will not be able to maintain our position in the market. And today the situation is that any car has roughly a model life of about 6 years. And in that 6 years, in the middle somewhere, you have to do some minor changes and some refurbishment of interiors and exteriors so that there is a renovated car available in the middle of this 6-year period. And I think that applies to almost every single model which we have in the pipeline. And I think that's the way the industry is going. And our plans, which you will see over this year, next year, and thereafter, will roughly conform to this principle that models which are 3 years old will undergo refurbishment. Models which are 6 years old, roughly, will undergo a new model.
Mr. Bhargava, broadly, can you tell us that how much of your sales in any projected year comes from new launches? What I'm trying to understand from you is that we know that new launches, they make a lot of difference, and there's a natural migration which happens. So in Maruti's case, what is that number?
I'm not sure if I can give you the exact number, but the additional sales, the growth of the market which is happening not only for Maruti, but I think for every single company which is launching new models, the growth in that year largely comes from new models. The older models do not provide that growth. So if we are going to grow 10% a year, then that 10% has mostly to come from the new model launches in the year.
Hormazd, since you're a keen observer of not just Maruti but the entire industry as well, tell us how is Tata Motors, their current portfolio, their upcoming launches matching up? Because, expectations were pegged high when it came to Tigor, I don't know how you correct, Tigor, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Tata Motors, there's a lot happening, but they've got a lot of their legacy to shake off. So really the brand is still very weak. People are still skeptical about, buying a Tata product. That is slowly changing. There's no silver bullet. It's going to require a lot of hard work, a lot of patience to really, sustain a trajectory which they are on right now. So I think with the Tiago and, Tigor is too early to say. There is, let's say, a positive buzz around Tata Motors. Obviously, there are a lot of organizational changes which the company is working on. So there's a lot happening over there. And they've got the whole Volkswagen alliance too, which, if that plays out, that could really work for both. But it's too early to say because alliances are, it's great on paper, but when it comes to executing them, it's very, very difficult, especially when there's, cultural differences and things like that.
So, and Volkswagen has had its fair share of issues again.
Yeah, Volkswagen has had it, but Volkswagen is a far more humble company now than it was before, especially after Dieselgate. And from what and it's not going to be Volkswagen, it's going to be Skoda that's going to be leading the alliance because Skoda has a much lower cost structure than Volkswagen, which really makes sense, for working in an emerging market. So Skoda is taking the lead for the group in emerging markets like India purely because they can their cost structure is much more competitive. But having said that, it's a very exciting time for Tata Motors. As I said, it looks all fantastic on PowerPoint, but executing it is going to be the key, and there are a lot of challenges to that. But so far they've taken all the right steps. There's been no real missteps so far, be it with the Hexa, be it with the Tiago, and now with the Tigor. We'll have to see. So as I think it's going to be a case of fingers crossed.
So from an investor's point of view, it continues to be Maruti at the top of the pecking order?
I think Maruti's run at the top is, to me, looking unchallenged for many, many years. I just think the others, they just don't have a game plan to compete with Maruti effectively, because every time something comes up, Maruti pulls something out of the hat. And you got to see it from their point of view, because for Suzuki, this is their most important market. And, that's how it's going to be. But having said that, there's just some news which I got, over the weekend from the managing director of Hyundai, who said their company is going to be investing 5,000 crores up to 2020 to launch 8 new models. So in India. And, even from the Korean car makers' point of view, India is about 15% of their global sales. So it's a very big market. So Hyundai is going to be putting up a fight. But other than that, I really don't see anyone challenging Maruti.
Mr. Bhargav, in 2016 and better part of 2017, even though we had issues like demonetization, we had slowdown in rural activity, Maruti had more demand and less capacity. There was a waiting at your showrooms in almost all your models. You've explained that to us. That was largely because your Gujarat plant was scaling up. Now, what could be the situation like for your production in this year?
See, this year Gujarat will probably produce something around maybe between 150, 175,000 cars. So that will be extra compared to what we can produce in Haryana. But the backlog of orders is already about 130 or 140,000 cars. And if to that you add the normal growth of market demand and something which may come with the new model launches which will happen this year, I personally feel that we will still unfortunately continue with the backlogs in some of the models.
You've given a guidance number for FY17 and you were able to achieve that. So what could be the picture like for FY18? I mean, these are early days, but I'm sure you're working with some internal numbers in terms of demand supply.
See, our internal figure always, as we have said earlier also, we want to maintain double-digit growth. So our aim in 17-18 will be to achieve double-digit growth. That's our internal target. Whether the budget reflects that or not is a different matter, but the target we will try and achieve is to get double-digit growth.
So double digit is a very tall definition. 10% is also double digit, 30% is also double digit.
That means a minimum of 10%.
Yeah, we all know what he must be meaning about double digit. Again, unless he pulls another rabbit out of the hat. But just coming back to this BS3 flash sale, Hormazd, which has happened, this really drives home the point that the Indian consumer is just looking for the right price and a sasta price. It doesn't matter, whether it's BS3, BS4. If it's cheap, it's a buy.
I mean, it's quite clear he's not interested in saving the planet, just his wallet. That's how it is. So, yeah, I mean, that's how it is. But I think that's also a big wake-up call for the auto industry, this whole BS3 thing that, and a slap in the face for the government that the Supreme Court has kind of, just given this order. And I think the writing is on the wall that a deadline is going to be for registration and sale and not manufacture, even though, in letter it was manufactured. And I think this is going to be the way forward for BS6. And this is a big wake-up call because now the industry has a couple of years to move to BS6. Frankly, the deadline will be advanced because if you have to sell cars rather than just manufacture, that's going to mean eating into a couple of months of lead time. So I think, I think what's happened with this whole BS3, BS4 issue is quite telling. And I think moving forward, the industry, would be, it would be prudent to just work on looking at sale being the deadline rather than manufacturing.
So who will be dominating this new normal? When I say new normal, there is a new normal. There is consciousness which will come at the manufacturer levels. Will it be Indians? Will it be Japanese? Or will it be the Americans?
No, I think you can't, let's say classify it that way. I think what you've got to do is the people who have the technology globally, it's much easier to bring it down. And typically most multinationals do have that because they're operating in BS6 markets now for a while abroad. So I think Indian companies like Mahindra, Tata Motors, which don't have, let's say, global products, they don't have any BS6 models out there anywhere right now. I think for them it'll be tough. Whereas for companies, let's say all the Mercedes, they've kind of said we're going to bring in BS6 even before the norm. They're absolutely ready and biting at the bit to bring it if the fuel comes in. So they're absolutely ready because they just need to pick it up from Europe or America, wherever, and just transplant it here. So I think that's the way to look at it. The people who will have an advantage are those who already have the technology in other markets in the world.
So, I mean, pricing and technology brings me to the premium sedan segment. How do you see things moving there? Because again, that pocket is also getting a little heaty. You've got a Lexus, you've got the new Altis UV, you have Honda WRV, and that space is getting very exciting. Yeah,
I mean, Lexus is right at the top, then, the Altis is a bit. But I think what is happening is it's fair to say that certain segments are under pressure, like the compact sedan segment. And I think a lot of that sale is actually now going to, taxi aggregators, Uber and Ola. Yeah. So, really dependent on them for a lot of sales. I think people are jumping to bigger hatches and to compact SUVs. People just love SUVs. They're the flavor of the month. And they're really pulling, let's say, demand from all the other segments. So you've got cars like the Brezza, the Creta, Hyundai Creta really doing well and continuing to do well, selling in, over 10,000 units. So that goes to show that, people want these kind of vehicles and it's coming at the cost of some of the others. So the sedan segment under a bit of pressure, I think, purely because people are gravitating to different body styles.
Okay, urban SUVs is the new norm. Maruti also is trying to, scale up in that space. Mr. Bhargav, what I've always admired about Maruti is that you've always been a innovator in categories. You're the first small car company with an air conditioning, first small car company which came out with a power window, first small car company to come out with a, with a power steering in a small car. So what is the new thing we should hear from Maruti in next 12 months?
Well, I'm not sure what you would get, but we also brought in the automatic manual transmission in a small car, which brought automatic transmission to the doorsteps of the ordinary consumer buying small cars. Generally, India had only just about a 5% penetration of automatic cars. But with these cars, we are selling 30–40% of the models in these, like the Celerio and others, are selling with automatic transmission. So that's been a change which is happening. The mild hybrid has been a new development which has happened. But I think going forward now, there'll be more and more emphasis on better fuel efficiency, because that is not only in the consumer interest, but it also helps to meet the environmental norms. And I think what was said a little while earlier, that the customer, given the choice, will opt for price. But I think the manufacturers have a little bit of a responsibility to see that we worry a little bit more about the environment and don't give that kind of a situation where a customer can choose and not use the car which is more environmentally friendly. That is why from 2010 we were making Euro 4 cars.
Hormazd, you have a question for Mr. Bhargava?
Mr. Bhargava, we've just heard that the subsidy on mild hybrids has been removed. How do you think that's going to impact Maruti? Because I think you guys, are really pushing, are the only ones who really have this.
Well, it's certainly going to push up the price, and I'm not quite sure why, when this mild hybrid is the technology which is introduced for the smaller cars to make it affordable to the let's say the medium level cars in India, is not being subsidized, and the more expensive cars which have full hybrids are being subsidized. The logic of subsidizing the more luxury cars and not giving the benefits to the smaller cars used by the more common man is a little bit difficult to understand for me. So I think we have to check with government what's happening. It'll certainly push up the cars with mild hybrid technology, probably therefore lead to a reduction in sale of that technology. People will buy the ordinary cars. It's not going to help either fuel consumption or environment.
That also leads, to the point of having a consistency in policy, especially for the auto industry, which requires really long lead to develop products. I mean, you have these ad hoc, suddenly it's there, suddenly it's removed. What I do know is even Hyundai is preparing mild hybrids for the next generation Verna and probably the Creta. So I don't know how that's going to impact their plans. But clearly, you kind of plan this at least 18 months to 2 years in advance. So I think policy makers, even courts, need to understand that at least give enough lead time. Okay, BS6, it's short, but there is enough lead time, so one can understand that. Do you think that's really the call? I mean, the really need right now, especially for the auto industry?
We've always said this, that policies should not be kind of ad hoc, stop-go kind of policies, as you're saying. And this mild hybrid subsidies and concessions on excise, they came not so long ago. Why suddenly in the middle, after 2 years, they should get discontinued? I'm at a loss to understand. And this kind of thing gives wrong messages as to what we should spend money on in trying to develop which technology, because you don't know what's going to happen next. You have a certain economic calculation done on the basis of government policies, and then it changes.
Fair point, but that's India for you. Appreciate your time, Mr. Bhargava, Hormazd. Always a pleasure to have you on ET Now. Thank you for joining.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.